Welcome to the Reecie Colbert Show, Sheena Meade. Hey girl, how you doing?
Hey girl, hey.
Hey, happy Women's History Month. I am so happy to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. I take it as an honor and look forward to share more about how women are making impact.
Absolutely. Trust me, the honor is all mine. I'll let my audience know we met after Black History Month festivities at the White House. And as soon as you started talking, I was like, gotta have you on my show. You are the exact kind of person that I like to highlight. And with this being Women's History Month, I was like, yep, let's make this happen. So, this show normally, when I'm doing interviews, it's focused on the work or it's focused on particular projects, but I kind of wanted to go a little bit of a different route this time and focus more on you as an individual because it is Women's History Month and it's all about spotlighting who we are, not just what we do. And so, my first question is a very basic question, but I just want you to tell the people who is Sheena Meade.
Yes. So who is Sheena Meade? She is a mother, activist, a wife, a daughter, a cousin, and just a Black woman trying to live freely and with
Mm,
joy, with Black joy in this world. Um, you know, I was a mother, excuse me, at the age of 14.
mm,
I found myself to be a mom. Then again, at the age of 16, and I was a young mom graduating high school with two babies on my hip, who then got married at 18. And in about my middle of my 20s, I found myself as a single mother with 5 children who overcame domestic violence, sexual assault, and grew up in a family of activists. My mother was a union activist, always doing community organizing. And in my early 20s, I found myself feeling a little bit powerless. And I knew I
mm.
wasn't raised that way. I was raised around some very powerful women who always planted seeds in my life and spoke life into me and greatness. And probably like in my 20s is when I really start tapping back into those seeds that were planted in my life and start manifesting them. And my family started to see the harvest. So I got involved in organizing and community activists. And what I like to tell people, I turned my pain into purpose. All those
Mhm.
pain points that I dealt with, from being felt like I was being stigmatized or judged as a teenage mom, to a single mother, a single Black mother, trying to take those pain points from living on Section 8 to finding like my purpose and my passion. And what that turned out to be, Reecie, was advocating for, affordable housing, advocating for Head Start funding. I was a Head Start policy chair for my kids' school because my kids went to Head Start. Um,
Mhm.
to advocating for SNAP benefits because my babies got fed through government assistance and they had that good WIC checks that I would cash, right?
Yeah.
So I had some stocky kids. And so I was trying to figure out how to like turn my pain into purpose. And last thing I'll say on that is in 2007, um, again, over, I think it was 2007, but the early 2000s, Florida got hit with 2 hurricanes back to back.
Mhm.
And I was trying to get back on my feet, recently divorced. And I went to the grocery store to write a check to feed my babies. And,
Mhm.
back in the day, we used to write checks and write the amount for over the amount so you get cash back because I needed some gas. And
Okay.
I wrote the check for $87.26. And that check had bounced.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, well, they get the money when I get my check, I'll put it back in the bank. But this time the bank decided to return the check back to the store. And the store decided to prosecute me or ask for me to be prosecuted for $87.26. And about 2 months later, two cops knocked at my door and arrested me in front of my at that time 4 children. And I went
Mm.
to jail for a worthless check. And um that, that left me really bruised,
Mhm.
embarrassed, feeling down because I never had any type of engagement with the criminal system, or and to get locked up in my suburban middle class white neighborhood as the only Black woman then single
Yeah.
living on the block, like, you know,
Mhm.
I was like, this is not a good look. And I thought that, you know, when I got out of jail and paid the check off that cost more than what the actual check, I thought that was done. It was the end of my sentence. But I realized, Reecie, when I tried to enroll in school years later, that I was met with that old conviction. When
Mhm.
I tried to volunteer at my son's school to go to SeaWorld, I was met with that conviction. When
Mm.
I tried to get housing, I was met with that boxing conviction. And so I realized that my real sentence had started. And, you know, that has been a part of my journey, but it has turned around for the good though now.
Right, right. Yes. I mean, that is an extraordinary path to get to where you are today, this powerhouse CEO, boss that is changing the lives of millions of people. That's not just like hyperbole. That is tangible numbers you can put in terms of the initiatives that you are leading up and the impact it's had on our society. Let me ask you a question. The charge that you were convicted of, was it a misdemeanor or was it a felony? Because I was struck by, I would think at $87, it would be, a petty crime that wouldn't necessarily follow you to the extent that it has impacted you. So I would imagine that a lot of people probably think that a misdemeanor isn't as serious as a felony. Can you clarify that point?
Yes, so that's a great question, because this is the place that I feel like I could educate people the most. It was a misdemeanor, but what
Mm-hmm.
people don't realize in America is like 1 in 3 people have either an arrest or a conviction on their record, right? So
Mm-hmm.
whether they've been arrested and the charges was dropped, or they was able to beat the case, like folks like to say, or if they was convicted, meaning that they had to either plead guilty or was, you know,
Yeah.
like, so no matter what their case, no matter what your case is, you are still met with those barriers. So there
Right.
are over 114 million Americans that have an arrest or conviction. And that's
Mm.
from misdemeanor, just arrested, or to a felony. And no matter what, folks still face those barriers, because at the end of the day, folks don't want to know where you just convicted. They want to know where you ever arrested, where
That's
you're.
true.
And so they still have that barrier, you know, trying to get jobs, housing, even employment, or just even going to school. And so sometimes it doesn't even matter whether it was a arrest, misdemeanor, or felony. What people see was that you had a run in with the system.
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that people just kind of, I mean, one of the things you touched on was sometimes people like plead down to, right, to a misdemeanor. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, it's not as serious, but this is a potentially lifelong impact if you don't get your record expunged or things of that nature. Let's talk a little bit more though about your journey. You talked a little bit about, feeling stigmatized and all of the various issues that you've had to overcome. I know that I have a diverse audience of people who, some of them are single moms, some of them are, single women, or people who are, survivors of different assaults, or even I have people like that in my family. What got you through those moments? I know even as you were a teen, a teenager, you graduated, even with being a teen mom, and you were still active in your community and various causes. What helped you get through all of those various phases in your life?
Well, I definitely have to like give honor to like my faith. So, you know, I'm
Mm.
a person of faith, and definitely realizing that my situation like was not going to define who I was going to be like now, right? And so
Hmm.
it was definitely women, a lot of women, Black women, whether it was with my family or just community, that like supported me. And I think that's really important, that, you know, when we see situations, sometimes we are so easy ready to judge or like step back, when we should,
Hmm.
like as women, like leaning in. And so I contribute really like me being able to get through those moments for the women who did not lean back, but they leaned into me, right? And so
Right.
my mom and my sisters was like really engaged around civic engagement in different
Hmm.
organizations. And I was a part of an organization called the Black Women's Roundtable and Black Youth Vote. And so I was a young organizer I was the young mom coming in with the baby on my hip to the Black Youth Vote conference, where the women would help with the baby. Like, okay, we got the baby, so you could actually be a youth and lean in, and organize. And so it was folks like that. It was my teachers who believed in me and know they saw more than maybe what I saw in myself at that moment.
Yeah.
So what I would say is it's definitely a community, and having a community of people that could support you. And then for folks who like, what, well, my family might have stepped away from me, or I don't have that family, there's always other ways to find community, with women, with others that can give you that type of support.
Yeah. That was what I was going to ask you. Like, for those who feel intimidated, respectability politics is a big thing in our community. And we are so quick to dismiss particularly Black women for any number of reasons. And so that might discourage people or give people a pause to even stepping out into areas where they might feel judged. So I'm glad that you touched on, you still go out and seek that community. And I'm sure that community, not only did you bring benefit to the community and your activism, but it was a mutually beneficial thing. And so don't shy away from a village just because you don't meet like the checklist of respectability politics. Let me ask you this. What you have done with the Clean Slate Initiative is so audacious. And I'm just like, where does it come from to have the audacity to say, I'm going to tackle a project this big, not as a millionaire, not as a person who comes from the Harvards and even the Capitol Hill, but as a person who is seeing an issue that is impacting millions of people and deciding to do something about it? Where does that even come from?
Right. I like when you say like the audacity, like,
yeah,
I'd be like, yes, I had the audacity to take that $87.26 check, turn around and get $75 million to support the movement and to grow this organization. The audacity to be able to just tell my story unapologetically and not feel shamed and stigmatized, to help other people come out and be able to share their story so they no longer have to feel stigmatized. But, where it came from, like, one, I think, first of all, Reecie, I don't know if I really knew what I was stepping into when I first took the helm. I was like, Sheena, you crazy.
Yeah.
Like, when the opportunity came, it was, I had just came off of supporting my husband running Amendment 4 in Florida, that won in 2018 that restored voting rights to 1.4 million people. And he did it in such a way that he was centered around love, redemption, forgiveness, second chances. And it was people over politics. It wasn't based on partisan ideology or how people, or economic status. And he was able to win that campaign, getting over 5 million votes. And so I knew the blueprint of having a successful campaign. And so,
well, hold on. Can I just correct you there? Because you said he was able to win that. And I know that you were there we go. I just wanted you to put that we in there one time. Okay. I know we give credit.
I gotta get my French together.
Right? There we go.
So we was able to be successful in that campaign. And so I took a lot, but when I say I take a lot of the blueprint of his leadership, right? How to like break through the noise and not let folks like distract you around what you can be doing. So when I saw this opportunity, I was like, this is an opportunity to like really scale this at a national level around removing barriers and creating opportunities for directly impacted people. And who better to do it as someone that's a directly impacted person? Like, I know the pain, I know the barriers, I know what it feels like to live with a record that can haunt you, and so I will say that I was able to do that with one, having a vision, having very supportive folks that supported the organization, with funding, and then building a dynamic team around me. I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. I just need to have a vision. That's how I look at it, right?
Yeah.
So we've been able, it blew our mind, because I was really in 2020 when I started leading this organization. It was just about passing like clean slate in 2 to 3 states. And today, and I've been leading it, it'll be 4 years this year, we've been able to pass clean slate in over 12 states. Wow. And so having impacted over 15 million people who now have access to have their record either partially or fully cleared. So it's been a beautiful journey. But again, I realize now looking back that everything that I've gone through my journey has equipped me for this day to lead a movement like this, because I was never thinking that that young teenage mother who was in a special ed class, who people thought that should drop out of school to raise her babies, will be now leading a multi-million nonprofit organization impacting millions of people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely extraordinary and so inspirational. One of the things that I do like to offer though to the audience is something that is also pragmatic, and so for people, like for instance, when people come to me and they say, how do I get started in media? How do I do this? I always just say, get started, do the content. If you want people to take you seriously, you have to have something that you're offering up already. You can't say, I want to be a media person, and then we go to your Instagram page and you ain't got no doggone videos,
Right.
And so when it comes to the space of organizing, or let me not say organize, let me say the space of having a nonprofit, of having an organization itself, because anybody can organize without necessarily an organization. If somebody has a passion, something that they feel like, this is something that I really want to see happen, but I have no clue where to start, what are just some of the kind of lessons learned that you have, or some of the tips that you could give to people who want to turn, as you say, their pain into purpose?
Yes. I would say learning how, like, first starting with your voice. Like, everyone has a voice. And so it kind of makes me cringe when people say, oh, I'm the voice for the voiceless. No, everyone has a voice. I see my role as, I use my voice to amplify the voices that you may not want to listen to or that you're not hearing. And so advocacy is just about advocating for those that you care for or yourself. And so the first, I think in nonprofit is usually around trying to advocate for something, right? Where you're not trying to give return, you're trying to have impact. And so I would say learn, like, one, like, folks need to understand, like, how their purpose, like I say, like turning my pain into purpose, but I'm actually able to take my purpose and connect it to policy wins.
Yes.
And so, like, so if I'm saying that I care about childcare or early education, I need to learn how, like, policies are created around that. I need to know who are the policy makers. I need to know who makes those decisions. And so understanding how to connect your issue to also policy makers and politics. And folks say, well, I'm not political, but I'm like, to be honest, there's somebody who's making decisions around the thing that you care about. And you have to know how to advocate to those folks, let them hear you. So you should reach out, find out who your legislators are, find out who your local council member is, your school board member. And so even if you say, well, listen, I care about domestic violence. Well, there are funds to support your issue, right? There are funds on the state level, the local level, or a shelter. Volunteer here, like, start talking to people that's in that space. I think listening is a key thing too, understanding what is needed, because you also don't want to recreate the wheel and you just in competition with another organization doing the same thing, where you could be additive and just add value. So see where there's a gap at, where there's a need that's not being filled. When I look at the organization of Clean Slate, there was no national organization that was focused on automating record clearance. So it was a big opportunity to do that.
Incredible advice. I mean, and I'm glad you said some of the things that I'll be preaching about, especially about connecting policy to the things that you want to see change in your life, in your community. So I'm glad they didn't just have to hear that from me. They heard it from somebody who is actually making a difference nationally in the lives of millions of people. Sheena, it has been so wonderful having you on the Reecie Colbert Show. I want you to come back, and I want to talk more about Clean Slate Initiative, because this is an initiative that, as you said, affects over 100 million people in this country. And it affects people to a much greater extent than I think any of us realize until we find out about the work that you and others have been doing around trying to help people get that clean slate. So thank you, Sheena. How can folks follow you until the next time you come on the show?
Yeah, so one, I want to say thank you for having me too, because I have been as I said to you when I saw you at CBC, like, girl, I've been following you and I feel like I watched your baby grow up online. And
Yes.
I remember when you were pregnant, and really appreciate you using your voice and your platform to educate not just young Black women and other Black women around these policy issues, but just community, how you can use your voice. And look at you now, got a show like reaching millions of people. So they can find me on Instagram at I am Sheena Meade. Also on Twitter, Sheena Meade. And if they want to know more about the organization, they could go to cleanslateinitiative.org, or you could go to my website, sheenameade.com. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Sheena. You have a good day, girl.
Thank you.